YouTube, what is going on? We are back with another one. Now that we have the game for about like 5-6 days, it's almost been a week. I really want to break down what I feel are the best team compositions in the game as a whole. Now, obviously, there's only a certain amount of characters, so the team compositions could only go so far. But I want to preface this by saying, A, play whoever you want. The game is not to the level where it's like, oh, if you want to use, for example, if you want to use, let's say, 3 sub DPSs in the game in your party, you won't clear the content. That is not the case. You might struggle a little bit in some end game content, but if you are good enough and you have a good enough skill ceiling and really well-built characters, anything can work. So I want to make this very clear. This is coming from my perspective on how I see the meta going now, but also in the future with future releases like someone like Jiyan. So let's get right into it. Let's take everyone out of the party. We're going to start, as I've spoken previously, the basis of team building is a DPS. It goes DPS, sub DPS, support. There's really only 2 or technically 3 support characters in the game, so this spot is really going to be mostly the same a lot of the times. Very little variety there, but the DPS is where things come in. So the first one we're gonna go with is Calcharo. I have a whole guide breaking down his whole kit, but pretty much he is very big on normal attack, and at the end of his forte circuit, whether you're in you get a charge attack buff, you do a charge attack to release more damage, or at the end of his Resonance Liberation, he does even more damage with something similar. So who do you want to go with? The sub DPS, really the very, very best and most optimal sub DPS is going to be Sanhua. And then for your support, you're going to go Furina. Now let me explain this real quick. Get used to seeing Sanhua and Furina, or Mortefi and Furina. Spoiler alert, those 3 are going to be tied together for, I think, a very long time. But let's go over this. So with Sanhua, you are able to actually buff his normals attacks with her outro skills. So the next character gains a 38% basic attack damage deepen for 14 seconds. When Calcharo is in his burst mode, you need to do 5 normal attacks before you can gain the proper stacks to do a bigger hit with more damage. So by you buffing the normal attacks, you're buffing that on top of more damage from your Resonance Liberation. It just equals way more damage. And then Furina, obviously, her outro skill gives you a 19% attack increase. Furina's outro skill is going to give you a heals. I moved it over so you can see the whole text. But Furina's outro skill gives heals, which is nice. But it also gives characters a 15% all type damage deepen for 30 seconds, which is a very long time. You should be able to get off everything in your kit within 30 seconds. It's very hard to not get off all of your damage within 30 seconds. So this is going to be the most optimal team for Calcharo right now. Now, the replacement for Sanhua is Mortefi. Now, Mortefi is still very good and is number 2 just because of the fact that his swap skill gives heavy attack damage increase. Now, obviously, the heavy attack damage increase can come in well when you're using the resonance skill, because that requires you to do a heavy attack. But objectively, Sanhua's normal attack buff is going to give you more of a bonus in the resonance liberation. So keep that in mind. You can use Mortefi. The positive with Mortefi as well is that his burst is going to give you off-field damage even more. So it's like Zincho, where it's going to do coordinated attacks. Every time you do 1 normal attack, it'll give you 1 coordinated attack. Every time you do a charge attack, it'll give you 2 coordinated attacks. So these 2, so Mortefi, perfect. If you don't have Mortefi, the free-to-play option is LingYang. LingYang is very solid in the fact that although she's not giving you a massive damage buff, I mean, her outro skill is strictly funneling energy into the next person you go to. So she's funneling those particles into Calcharo to get even more resonance energy, so that way he can do more DPS. And her ult gives massive I don't want to say massive, let me rephrase that. Her ult gives good CC. Not massive to this place to the level of Jianxin, or I can't pronounce Jianxin, not to the level of Jianxin, but still good CC. So that is a very good sub DPS option as well. You don't want to use someone like Alto. You don't want to use someone like Taochi, in my opinion. You could go Yanwu. Yanu is an option as well. This would be, I think, on the bottom of the list, though, in terms of the 3 I would recommend. You know, he unleashes Thunderbolts in an area centered around skills target. Yanwu really is mainly off-field DPS, you know, especially when you unlock his fortes. He is actually going to allow you to get a bigger area of damage for that little brick that he drops on the floor. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but it's usable. Again, everything is usable, but those are the 3 that are in the game currently. Now, when Jiyan comes out, that is replacing whatever sub DPS you have. If you are rolling for Jiyan and you have Sanhua there, if you have Mortefi, you have Yanwu there, take them out and put Yinlin there. Yinlin is not only giving you a buff to your Resonance Liberation with the outro skill, but she's also going to be buffing the same element that he used, which is Electro. So it's a massive W. I can't find saying well. It's a massive W, and that would be the best bet. Now, your support, I will say this genuinely, I really believe everyone should have Verena. You have 3 opportunities right now at the beginning of this game to get 3 standard banner characters. Make your instant selector Verena, bro. Make the instant selector Verena. Verena is just amazing. We put out a guide covering her kit and going in depth of exactly how she works and what she does specifically. A quick TLDR, she's a healer, but she's a massive buffer. As I showed you previously, her outro skill is giving you heals, but an additional 15% damage type deepen. And also she has this mechanic where she's like Kuki Shinobu from Genshin Impact. If you unlock her the most highest Forte skill under the above the Forte circuit, she will not let you die. You stay at like at 1 health or something, you know, very low HP, and you get a little bit of healing regen there. So that's very good as well. Now, the other obvious option if you do not have Verena is Baiji. Baiji is still very solid, free to play, but her outro skill only lets you have 15% damage deepen for 6 seconds as opposed to 30. You can still get off a lot of damage within 6 seconds, especially if you're swapping to your burst, or if you already have your Forte circuit fully up and you're not in your burst and you do the charge attack. So you do get some sort of damage buffs here with Baiji, but it's not as good. It's not as good, but she is still a very solid healer and a solid unit to build. Your other one that you could use, but I would not recommend, is Jianxin. Jianxin is technically in the category of support / sub DPS type of deal. She does have this thing where she can, you know, do like the chi, and she winds up and she gives you shielding, and she does give you a big load of CC with her burst, but this is not someone that I would recommend in a team like this. I think if you're running someone like Calcharo, again, really any main DPS, you really want to try to give them as much buffing as possible. So I think Baiji and Verena are always going to be a better choice in this category right now. So that's going over Calcharo real quick. Now going over Daddy Jiyan. This is my guy, son. Another person. We dropped a full guide on Jiyan. If you want to know the best echoes, weapons, etc., go watch that. This one is clear cut and dry. Mortefi, Verena, very simple. Mortefi is going to give him the heavy attack damage bonus. Verena gives that other things that we've mentioned. The reason why that's so good with Jiyan is the fact that when he uses his burst converts all of his normal attacks into heavy attack. So not only are you getting the coordinated strikes from his ultimate, but you're getting CC, so you're sucking everyone up. You're getting extra damage because now it's heavy attack, and it's just a lot of damage. This would be the best team for Jiyan. If you don't have Jiyan and you don't have Verena, you can go, again, LingYang to funnel particles. Jiyan does need energy. Jiyan definitely needs energy, and you can run into some energy problems with him. He is a little kind of like Zhao for the Genshin players, where he's very good and very strong, but goddamn, that boy needs some energy to get it up. You know what I'm saying? And then you go Baiji. You know what I'm saying? Funneling particles into you, healings, and you get that little buff from the outro skill. Now, Jianxin is not a bad choice. Again, just really not the best. Really not the best. And you have 2 people doing CC, and I feel like that's a little overkill. I would definitely throw her in a different team somewhere else. Not a bad unit, just stuck in a rock and a hard place where there's units that do what she does better, or she's just not offering enough of a deal to really matter in the end game, in my opinion. So it's a little rough being her, I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah, so then, you know, again, Baiji here. I wouldn't bother putting Sanhua with her. Obviously, Sanhua can get a pretty decent amount of burst, sub DPS burst damage out there, but with the outro skill buffing the normal attacks, I don't think it's really worth it. So that's what I go with Jiyan. Now we're going over Danjin, who y'all know is my GOAT. We have a guide out on Danjin right now. If you want, go check it out. Y'all know the vibes. Here's the deal. This will contain story spoilers. If you don't want to know anything about the story, please skip past the whole Danjin section of this video and you're good. With that being said, let's get right into it. Danjin has the 2 roles, sub DPS and DPS. We're going to go over DPS first. Now, technically speaking, as I've stated a million times, you have Mortefi, you have Verena. The thing with Mortefi is Mortefi's outro skill buffs the heavy attack damage. Now, I would personally use Mortefi here, and I would use Verena because, again, your charge attack, how does Danjin work? As we know, you have to use her charge attack to gain back the stacks that she gets from her Forte circuit. But you can make an argument for saying, hey, I want to use Sanhua instead because technically you do need to do 2 to 3 normal attacks before you use your resonance skill. So this one's a toss-up. It really goes based on what you feel is better. I go more Teffy just in general due to the fact that although I'm doing my normal attacks more, Mort's burst just makes up for it. Mort's burst, again, those coordinated attacks are insane, bro. Those coordinated attacks make a difference. And obviously Verena, again, you know, goated buffer, you know the vibes. If you don't have Mort, you're going to see a pattern. You're going to see LingYang. You're going to see Baiji. I can say that if you wanted to do something different where you don't have a healer with Danjin, you wanted to go LingYang or Jianxin instead, that makes sense, especially if you have Danjin RC5, I think it is. There is a constellation where if she is under 60%, she does more damage. Here it is, RC5. Danjin's Havoc damage bonus increased by 15% and further increased by another 15% when her HP is lower than 60. So if you're going to be like me and a little gremlin and try to play the game with her when she's one shot all the time, Jianxin is not a bad unit because she will be giving you that shield and again, the CC. You could even take out LingYang. So you could go Danjin, Jianxin, but then you could throw in someone like Verena technically to get even more of a buff here. So you have Danjin with, again, this is super hyper specific, but if your Danjin's RC5 and you want to go under the 60%, but you're nervous you're going to get one shot, you put her shields on, and then you have Verena for the extra healing slash damage buff with the outro. Now, if you want to swap Verena out because you don't want to heal her at all, you could throw another sub DPS in there. You could throw Mort. You know, I could see this being a very solid team. Coordinated attacks with your burst, shielding, CCing, and then just damage. Perfect. This could work as well. She has a lot of options. That's why I like her. She might not be the best DPS, and she probably never will be, but she will be in my heart because she's my favorite, bro. I like her playstyle. But whatever, I digress. All right. Danjin sub DPS is different though. Let's talk about this. So why is Danjin a sub DPS? Just to go over it quickly, the next character that activates gains 23% havoc damage deepen for 14 seconds until they are switched off the field. Most DPSs, their outro skills do not give the next person a buff. They'll leave some sort of attack on the field that will just do more damage, but they're not going to leave a buff on the field. The reason being is this: the Havoc Rover is fucking broken, busted, and you should build him. You should build a Havoc Rover as soon as possible. It goes Havoc Rover, Danjin, Verena. This is another team that is actually 100% meta and is melting bosses, and I cannot recommend enough. How does this work? You use Danjin to get the Concerto energy. You swap over to the Havoc Rover. Havoc Rover's Forte Circuit and Burst melts things, and you have Verena for the buffs. So it really is a very, very, very solid team, you know, and when you have downtime with the Rover and you don't have his Forte Circuit up or you don't have any of his abilities up, you could swap back to Danjin, who is still technically a DPS. So you really have the best of both worlds in this. It's kind of like Hannah Montana, bro. On one second, she's the DPS in the team. On the other second, she's the sub. So it really worked perfectly. And the synergy here is a chef's kiss. Mwah. You can't go wrong with this. W Danjin, man. I love Danjin. Now, I don't have Encore. So let's pretend Danjin is Encore, right? Because I don't have Encore, although I am focusing them because I think Encore is amazing. I just dropped an Encore guide going over their build, their kit, how everything works. Go check that out. For Encore, very similar. Now, you do want Sanhua for Encore. You want Sanhua and you want Verena. The reason why you want Sanhua is, again, outro skill is basically buffing up those basic attacks, and Encore is big on the basic attacks. That is her whole play style: basic attack, basic attack, basic attack, and timing and whatnot. So Verena's giving her the extra skill plus heals. Encore herself is getting defense res when she does like her follow-up coordinated attack from herself, and Sanhua gives her the normal attack buffs. Now, could you run more Teffy instead? You could run more Teffy instead, 100%, because again, his ult will have coordinated attacks, and in that video I actually showed you how that works, but his outro skill is not going to be as solid with Encore. Free-to-play option would be LingYang, Baiji. You see a pattern here? Because I see a pattern. LingYang's going to funnel particles, Baiji's going to heal you. The moral of the story so far has been build Sanhua, build Mort, build Verena, build Baiji, build LingYang, and in some cases build Yanwu, because that homie is not bad as well. He is a sleeper character. The other DPS in the game that I do not have is LingYang. Now, LingYang's team is Sanhua and Verena or Baiji. The reason why LingYang wants Sanhua is based basic attacks. You want those basic attack buffs. You use more basic attacks in his kit as opposed to using the charge attacks. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the main time you're using his charge attack when you just want to throw them in the air. And then when you throw them in the air, you're still using your basics. So you definitely don't want the actual, you know, heavy damage attack buff from someone like Mort, because Sanhua could do really well. Also, Sanhua just has great burst DPS, man. You know, Sanhua's Forte Circuit does a bunch of damage, and her ult does a lot of damage as well. So, W character, I mean, so yeah, after all my testing and really just doing my research testing and playing the game and breaking down kits, and we still have more guides to come, don't worry. These are the main teams that I'm really looking at. Now, obviously, there's a lot of dupes in here, to the point where you can't run all these teams, especially if you're trying to do the Spiral Abyss, right? You just got to mix and match. Again, no unit is bad. For example, someone like Alto, you know, Alto's whole thing is he can actually buff arrow damage. You know, you get 23% arrow damage deepen, but he's much more niche and just not as universally good as someone like a Mort. You know, that arrow damage deepen buff right there is not going to give you as much of a buff in total as it would if you're using his coordinated attacks, his outro skill, etc. Again, it varies on what you want and what you like. Now, a lot of people like Tauchi. Now, another team that I wouldn't necessarily recommend for my personal use, but it is usable, is Jianxin, Alto, and LingYang.
I will do my best.
Now, the way this would work is Alto's outro skill is going to give you that arrow damage buff for your main DPS, which is going to be Jianxin. And Jianxin's outro skill is actually giving you 38% resonance liberation damage deepen for 14 seconds. So you could swap from Jianxin to Alto, use Alto's burst, and then go to LingYang, get LingYang's outro skill, funnel some particles either back into Jianxin or Alto, depending on who you want to use. And you could get some really cool niche team comps like this, where they're not as obvious, and like, you know, obviously, Jianxin's DPS numbers are not going to compare to someone like Calcharo, especially off-rip without a high level of investment. But these niche team comps do work as well and are effective. So don't let a video like this shy away from, you know, saying, oh, well, I really want to use this character, but, you know, Ethan saying that they're really not the best and they really should be stuck in this one role. Bro, do whatever the fuck you want, my guy. Do whatever the fuck you want. But I'm just trying to present to you best, or the most, I'm trying to present to you the most meta team comps. And obviously, you have the main team as well. Rover, Chixia, and LingYang. Chixia being your main DPS, Rover being your sub, and LingYang being your sub as well. So this team comp could work. It's not I'm not a big fan of Chixia, but her DPS, she can be a DPS if, you know, if you build her. Now, if you come to me and said, Ethan, listen, man, I need 9 characters right now. Right now for an Abyss run, what do I do? This is what I would probably look at you and say: Calcharo, Sanhua, Baiji for free-to-play guides. Then after that, you go Jiyan, Mort, and Verena. And your third one could be Danjin, Rover, and Jianxin. Obviously, you're not going to get as much buffs from like Baiji as you would compared to Verena, but that's fine. You know, when Yinlin comes out, you could take Sanhua out of here, throw Yinlin here. You know, there's a bunch of ways you could play the game, but this is just like 3 off the top of the dome that I'm just like, all right, you know what I'm saying? Like, this could work, you know? PS / sub DPS, DPS, your shielder. So you don't have a healer, but now you got to learn how to dodge a parry because now you don't have a healer. This is what I would look at in terms of the best teams or the teams you should be building. So that's my thought process behind the team building, whatnot. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you have any questions. Mwah, I love you. I'll see you in the next one. So come on, baby, let's stop.